back, everyone. I can see those glaring smiles on everybody's face. So I'm assuming the mission was successfully accomplished. Yes, no? Yes. Louder? Yes. Perfect. All right. So we'll quickly deep dive into the last panel for the day. I'm sure it's going to be a powerful one, which is on Gen AI, impact on women leaders. The speakers will delve deeper into the key challenges and strategies for navigating the evolving tech landscape. Please join your hands with me as I welcome the moderator, followed by the panel members for this discussion. We have Roy Thomas, Deputy Director and Head of Diversity and Inclusion, NASSCOM Foundation, who will be moderating the panel. Shailesh Chopra, Senior Director of Software Engineering at Dell Technologies. Tyagarajan Venkateshan, ex-MD, JP Morgan Chase. Augustus Azaria, who's fondly known as Augie, Regional Director, Kendrill India. Neha Bagaria, Founder and CEO, Hurkey. As they walk the mile to the dais, let me just quickly read out their brief profiles. So Roy Thomas, a seasoned D&I leader, is currently the Deputy Director and Head of D&I at NASSCOM Foundation. With over 17 years of experience, he has championed inclusion at organizations like Dell Technologies and Pulse Secure. He's passionate about fostering inclusive workplaces and empowering marginalized communities. At NASSCOM, he leads industry-wide D&I initiatives, including the prestigious NASSCOM Global Inclusion Summits. We welcome you, Roy.
Thank you.
Next, we have Shailesh Chopra, Senior Director of Software Engineering at Dell Technologies, has over 20 years of experience. He leads high-performing teams, drives product and process transformations, holds 300 patents, and has pioneered industry-first innovations. Passionate about innovation, which is pretty evident, and community building, Shailesh also champions Women in Action, MIA ERG. We welcome you, Shailesh. Tyagarajan Venkateshan, retired SVP of First Abu Dhabi Bank, brings 40 years of banking leadership across major institutions, including JP Morgan, Barclays, and BNP Paribas. As former GTB head for Barclays, he oversaw 20 countries across Africa, Middle East, and Asia, specializing in trade finance and leading significant automation initiatives. We welcome you, Tyagarajan. Augie is up next. So, Dr. Augustus Azaria is a Regional HR Director at Kendrill for APAC MEA, brings 25 plus years of HR expertise, a recognized thought leader in people strategy and labor law reform. He serves on multiple industry boards. Beyond his corporate role, he champions women's empowerment through his trust, Looking Above, and mentors tech startups. Welcome, Augie. Last but not the least, please join your hands for Neha Bagaria. Wharton graduate and founder CEO of Hurkey, India's largest career platform for women, launched the venture after her own career break. Can you imagine it? Under her leadership, Hurkey connects 4.5 million women with 15,000 companies nationwide. A Forbes India W Power Trailblazer and business line change maker, she champions workplace diversity while balancing motherhood. We welcome you, Neha. All right, I have done enough of talking. I'll hand it over to Roy and the panel for a fruitful conversation.
Thank you so much. Right, so we'll try to keep this conversation very precise, very engaging. We've also made it a fact that Gen AI is not a very complicated term for everybody to understand or to scare anybody. I'm not a Gen AI expert, but I think the conversation here is very critical. It's Gen AI impact on women leaders and what are some of the strategies that we could look at when it comes to the representation of women in the tech landscape. So just to give you a very high-level view on how generative AI and robotics is shaping or restructuring the industries, not just industries, but how we think, work, and lead. And the McKinsey report estimates that Gen AI could contribute up to $4.4 trillion annually to the global economy. And in India, the AI market is poised to hit $7.8 billion by 2025. And while all of this tech evolution and advancements is happening, there's a glaring gap, right? And only 22% of AI professionals globally are women. And the numbers is much lesser as we hit the leadership level. And that's known across. And we all have been working towards that for the decades. And interestingly, today, Mr. Tyagarajan walked into this room and he said, Roy, wow, it's 95% women in here. I said, yeah. And a very similar experience that we exchanged is, I was invited to speak at the NASSCOM Product Conclave, and I was one of the first speakers to go on stage and do a keynote, and I didn't realize that there were so many women. I went on the stage, stood in the dais, and started talking, and for a minute, my heart stopped beating for some reason. I saw a sea of 500 women in the front, and I looked to my right and the left. It was all just women. And my presentation stopped working. The video didn't play. And I was in a very awkward situation, right?
They were pre-planned.
Yeah, probably pre-planned. No, nobody pre-planned it. But what that made me realize is that's exactly how women feel in a boardroom. There are 10 powerful men sitting and there's one woman. And that's exactly how I felt. And it was a way for me to realize the representation. I mean, there was no better example than a real life experience to realize what the representation of women in anywhere is, right? So with that, just to set the stage on today's conversation, let's begin with the big picture. I'm coming to you, Mr. Tyagarajan. So so could you share your perspective on the most significant impact on generative AI on women leaders in tech today, and how is it shaping the leadership roles, as this technology evolves?
Thank you, Roy. Thank you, everyone, for this wonderful opportunity. So, you see, I keep my hair as it is. I don't paint my hair because it's a great advantage. You can walk in anywhere. You can just walk across the queue as a senior citizen. If you paint your hair, it's gone. So, generally, AI is like painting the hair. It's not to demean that in terms of painting the hair, but there's a lot of halo around that, and that's exactly what we have to demystify in terms of generative AI. AI is artificial intelligence. Why artificial? It can be, it can be an intelligence. Why artificial? It can be natural intelligence, but it's just a terminology. You don't have to worry too much in terms of terminology. What is generative is like it learns. It's like a child. I was talking to some of the students out there. They were talking about what is the difference between analytics and AI. And analytics does exactly the same thing in terms of taking data and comes out with some conclusions and gives it to you. Whereas the AI platform takes the data and keeps on adding its conclusions and learns from that and keeps learning. And one day it's like it will learn better than us. That's going to happen. And anyway, you see, today all our teachers, we have far outgrown our teachers. Some of you should go and visit your teachers as often as you do. I keep doing that religiously every year. By the way, I write a column called Happy Weekend. I'm not trying to sell the data out here. It tells you about the values of what you should have in life in terms of trying to be happy, etc. So one of the sessions I took earlier for one of the IIM classes, a session called Be Happy. I think if you know, Harvard has introduced a session on Be Happy. There's some statistics. One of the biggest institutions which teaches engineering. I don't want to name the institution. There is every year 5 or 6 students commit suicide because of the pressure in terms of this one, etc. So while the students face the same kind of a pressure, it's the same thing for working environment, and all the more so for the ladies, because they work at home, they work at office, they work on the way. I'm sure you would have heard the stories of ladies working their way on the Bombay trains before they go, they cut the vegetables and all that. You would have heard the stories. So it's so heartening to see that there are I think 95% is the understatement. I think about 97-98% of the people here are women. That's so nice to see. So the generative AI, as I said, is something which learns from what you do. It starts with a zero. It's like a child. You bring it up, But at the same time, till it reaches 21, you never give it any, kind of authoritative decision. We still make all the decisions. Beyond 21, they run away. The children. I have a son who is happily living and married. He said, old man, he has run away. He's an engineer living in Germany with his wife. My daughter is about to get married. She is going to live in London. And me and my wife, we only fight. We have 4 bedrooms and 2 halls at home. So every day our agreement is, we fight in the kitchen only today. If we come out of the kitchen, no more fights. So similarly, today we do in the first floor hall. We want to fight, we go there, scream our best, and then come out, stop. It's a great achievement. I think we should try that technique as a generative AI. That's what we have learned in generative AI is how do we kill the fight is to fight out and then come out of that room, and thereafter we stop fighting. We become normal husband and wife. And we two are alone. So, why I'm giving this example is a generative AI is like a child. You have to build it up. You have to spend time and effort. You have to keep feeding data onto that in terms of making that happen. And that is true for men and women. It is whether you're a man or a woman or a lady employed, unemployed, at home, etc. The best example is we never called it generative AI or AI, but we use them all in our home. You take, for example, the daily cooking at home. Is it a form of an AI? I think, my mom every day used to come around and, I have so much of bendies, I have this much, fridge is full of tomatoes and potatoes and all that. What do I cook today? That's a decision you have to make, right? And it was very easy for her to pass on, come to my dad and, say these things I have, what do I cook? This is a question from my mom. And my father used to make all the decisions. Thank God, he taught me a few tricks out of that. My wife does exactly the same thing, but of course I don't answer them so well because, but my father used to make those decisions in terms of taking the data, and he used to give an answer. That was generative AI. Because every day he used to learn, it's the same tomato, but the tomato from a village is different from the tomatoes in Bangalore, is different from the tomatoes which are imported. This is the same tomato, it's completely different. So the inputs are different, and that's how they used it in the form of AI. So they were all manual. You feed that into the computer, it becomes AI, it becomes a generative AI. And we used to do that all the while in my life. That's why I'm not about to give the examples of the formative FI in a computer sense, etc. Come to the banking industry where I worked 42 years. 42 years I've retired, thank God. Retirement is a great option. All of you have to work another 20 years. You have to wait. You have to reach 62 to become 62. You better wait. Sorry, you don't have that benefit of reaching there early. So you have to wait. You have to become senior citizens to bypass all the queue. So that's a great option. Now, in the financial services industry, what do you do is, how do we use the it's a very simple decision. Do I lend to this man, etc.? I happen to run my own NBFC company out of Coimbatore. You have to do something after retirement, otherwise the lady at home sends you out in terms of AI decisions, etc. So I run a small, NBFC, a non-banking finance company out of Coimbatore. Why Coimbatore? Today you can sit anywhere and do anything you want, or you don't have to do anything you want. That's what I do. I don't do anything except this lecture was very interesting. So I called our organizer. I said, boss, do I have a chance? He said, yeah, come, let's see. Well, I'll try to put you in one corner. That's what he said. I said, okay, why not? It's better to be in a corner than cornering a glory.
Most important topic, the most forward.
Absolutely. So thank you, sir. It's a great option for an old man to talk about AI, which is possibly the youngest in the computer subject. Yeah, absolutely. So age is just a number. So therefore, I think the best example I used to give is the AI is the example I'll give is we use the AI to build on every single credit case. What we do is whether we can lend, the lending is, it can be 1 year, 1 day, overnight to 100 years of lending or 20 years of lending. So we build our parameters. For example, I'm a vegetarian. See, if some proposal comes for financing a non-vegetarian industry, I don't like it. It's a personal preference. Whether it's right or wrong is a different discussion. Whereas the computer doesn't have that subjectivities and objectivities. It evaluates perfectly. So that's the difference between AI, which is artificial, and MI, which is the manual intelligence. I prefer an AI because it's completely objective. It's not subjective. It doesn't make decision because it likes a vegetarian or non-vegetarian. So therefore, we use that as an option. I can't teach you that because we're still learning. I think it's about 20% complete. There's another 80% to go. But I think computers will make the decisions in the future. So that's where, let me stop at this because I can keep talking for 2 hours and 3 hours, but there are enough panel. Thank you, sir.
So, Mr. Tyagarajan, thank you so much for breaking that down so simply, right? As simple as it is, it also comes up with a lot of challenges. And I think that's where the next question leads on to you, Neha. You've been in the forefront of empowering women professionals for a long time. And what unique challenges do you see women leaders face in adapting generative AI changes, and how does that impact the gender gap and the representation of women in the tech-related roles?
Sure, thank you for that question. And, I was just thinking when you were speaking that, it's not very often nowadays that I'm on a panel with 4 men. And that's very nice, by the way. It's very nice to have male speakers talking about when it comes to women leadership, because it is very important for us to solve this problem together. But that being said, we all come with a lot of biases, and the problem is that when women are not involved in the AI conversation, those biases are getting into AI as well, right? At the end of the day, all the biases that humans have are going to seep into from human intelligence to artificial intelligence. I don't know how many times, man would have spoken about cooking on a panel, unless it was in a women's session. We are talking about Gen AI over here. We're talking about artificial intelligence, and I don't think women need to be told how it compares to cooking. They are technologists and coders and developers also in their own right. So I think it's extremely important that women lead this conversation when it comes to artificial intelligence, because AI is going to rule all our lives. Think about it. Before 3 years, none of us were saying the word AI, right? And now we can't stop talking about it. Imagine what's going to happen in 3 more years, or 10 more years, or 30 years. All our lives are going to be ruled by AI, and if that AI is biased because it's being created by men, for men, of men, we are screwed. Okay? At the end of the day, if all our decisions are going to be based on AI in terms of, what your credit worthiness is going to be, whether you should get a loan or not, whether you should get that job or not, whether you should be nominated for a position or not, whether, you should be nominated for an opportunity, women have to be leading this conversation. Now, the problem is, and, to your point about why are women not leading this conversation? And, I'll break it down into my 3 favorite pillars for all these problems. It's opportunities, learning, and communities. When it comes to opportunities, there's a lot of bias when it comes to women in tech, right? When anybody imagines a person, a technologist or a developer or a coder, they think of a man. And in fact, there was a big campaign run in Silicon Valley that this is what an engineer looks like, and they had women pictures on it. So one, realizing that these opportunities are the right place for a woman as well. When it comes to applying for those jobs, first of all, opening up those job opportunities, then applying for those jobs, and also then asking to be promoted into those roles. Now, one of the reasons also why these opportunities are not as accessible by women is a third most important pillar, which is the learning piece of it. When it comes to any advanced technologies and new technologies, there's a lot of upskilling and reskilling that needs to happen. And frankly, in today's day and world, it's continuous learning. It's not even like aaj maine seekh liya, now that's it. I know what I need to know about AI for the next 5 years, because AI itself is evolving. Now, the problem with women is by the time their first shift is over, they are rushing home for their second shift, and so it's very difficult to actually invest that time in learning. But that same technology is what has made it so easy for us to learn. We can do it asynchronously. We can do it, at night when the whole house is asleep and quiet. We can do it in micro bits. We can do it through a lot of different ways of learning that were not available earlier. And the third piece is communities. And I think when it comes to communities, one, it's about changing the narrative, right? About realizing, about role modeling, about mentorship, about looking up the ladder and seeing a lot of women leading these voices and this change, and realizing that for the next generation of girls, for them to think that, I can also be that AI leader. But also, most importantly, in breaking the old boys clubs, because the only way for women to really get into leadership levels is through networking. And for that is where the professional networking plays a very important role, and where networking, of course, cannot be restricted to just networking with other women, because as you go up the ladder, that number really thins. It has to be also networking with men, creating the mentors, creating the sponsors that you need to be able to grow in your career, especially when it comes to advanced technologies and new age technologies.
I think a very interesting perspective, Neha, especially on the biased AI systems, right? I mean, the kind of implications that can have in the future is very scary in many ways, and not just for women, but I think it's across all the marginalized groups. But if we don't have the equal amount of representation, thanks for sharing that. And Augustus, coming to you, in your experience, what technical and leadership skills should women prioritize to stay relevant and competitive in an AI-driven industry? And how can we strike a balance between technical expertise and emotional intelligence for effective leadership?
Okay, thank you, Roy. Difficult question, but I'll try my best to answer that. And Neha, great job that you're doing. Neha and I have been partners in crime for many years in terms of growing women leaders. I'm always fascinated by the work she does with Herky. So great job. Thank you very much. I'm going to talk about this question by narrating an incident that happened very recently. It's a story, okay? And the main character is like one of you. Woman leader, mid-career, who works in a large company, and then one fine morning on a Monday, she gets called by the manager for a meeting. So when you're called on Monday for a meeting, did I goof up? Escalation? All those thoughts go in your mind. So she goes for the meeting with the manager. Manager's a nice guy, sits her down, has a cup of coffee, and then she says, Rukmini, by the way, it's a fictitious name. So Rukmini, you've done great in this company. You came from campus, spent nearly 15 years here, great career. You won a lot of business for us, traveled the world. And now, Rukmini, I have to tell you that with the emergence of AI, ML, cloud, the skills that you bring to the table are no more relevant. And I'm sorry that you may not have a job here in the next 3 months. Now, for Rukmini, mid-career, nobody has even given her this feedback. They've always looked up to her as a leader with technical prowess. And now this really takes her aback, and then she goes back home, mopes the day, and then she's back at her desk the next day. Now, the next day when she comes at her desk, she sees a small sign which says, click here. So Rukmini clicks there. What opens up in front of her is like the seatback TV screen you'll find on a transatlantic flight, okay, which says you left the place and your destination is so far away. This is your ground speed, this is your airspeed, this is the elevation or the altitude. And it also tells you that, okay, now you are flying over these peaks. And the peaks are what Rukmini needs to conquer for her to become relevant. Those are certifications, those are taking those use cases that she knows, those are some of those problem-solving abilities that she had. Those were all peaks that helped her, those were all skills that helped her cross these peaks. And of course, the rolling meadows are also there that the plane goes over. And the rolling meadows are those foundational skills that she learned, okay, that gives her a strong programming technical expertise. So she uses that. And then the rolling seas are all that she goes through day in and day out, maybe including traffic, okay. So the angry rolling waves are descriptive of what she goes there. Now, it's time to land. And there are various skills that she has now acquired. And somebody also told her that, you need to network and gain social eminence. So she gains social eminence by LinkedIn or whatever and improves her networking. Now, after she does this, they land and then the manager is out there. And then he says, hey, Rukmini, thank you. I have just the right job for you. Now, Rukmini says, yeah, thank you very much. And this job is an on-site opportunity and it pays you $1 salary, so on and so forth. So Rukmini tells the manager, thank you so much for that offer, but I do not want to take it. So manager is a bit taken aback and he asks her why. She says, well, I got this opportunity to work for this aviation company. So why aviation? Because Rukmini, I know that you have done a lot of CSR work to, help reduce pollution. You've brought clean drinking water into villages, and you've spent a lot of your time doing these social activities. So why would you join an airline company which pollutes the world? She says, well, exactly because I had a soul searching. I went deep inside to understand what I want to do. I found my purpose. And I'm joining this airline company, of course, as a coder, because every line of Java code that I'm going to write is going to help them reduce their carbon footprint. So when we go to net neutrality, that resonates with my purpose. So when it resonates with my purpose, I feel better. I feel that I'm doing purpose-driven work. Okay, so in that point of her life, she realizes that, and she's got all those skills, the technical prowess that she got from certifications, Udemy, and all of them, as well as from within. She was also told that skills is the new currency. And what do you do with skills? You invest or you spend it. So she invests her own money in certifications. Okay, and badges, not just the company. So therefore, she gains greater eminence. And end of it, she tells the manager, I can take up your opportunity. I'll work for you 3 days a week, and I'll work for this airline company the other 2 days. Now, what happened to Rukmini? She got both those jobs, but the reality today is that she's a gig worker. Right? So all that you asked me is encapsulated in the story where you drive your career. You are the master and owner of your career. All right? So when women come to me, of course, I support them with coaching, mentoring, sponsorship, and so on and so forth. But if you don't take that step and click that button and go through that entire reskilling space, you're going to be right there. So reskilling yourself is where you will be relevant and also find your purpose. The world is hurting. It needs love. Find your purpose. Thank you.
Very well put, Augustus. I think that was a brilliant example. And Sailesh, coming to you, we heard about 300 patents and all that you filed, and a lot of Greek and Latin stuff for people like me. But Sailesh and I go a long way back. While I was working with Dell as well, and I've always seen Sailesh sort of volunteer to support and help not just women, but across all the dimensions of diversities, and he's been a champion in that. And I think this question is for you, Sailesh. See, how can mentorship and support from leaders like yourselves play a crucial role in development of women, and also in organizations? How can cross collaborative work and things like reverse mentoring, young generations learning from or teaching older employees and vice versa, how does that impact in this whole thing?
First of all, it's very hard to go the last, because you need to make sure everybody who has come before you is stay true when I speak, because I need to press one. And there are really, really profound statements being made, and just thinking out loud in my mind that what else we can do. I think what we are doing is very, very limited. I happen to be on a chance encounter here on the stage. It was not meant to be all male. I'm the Stepney. I was telling to my few folks, right? And definitely I'm honored and proud to be a minority in front of all of you, because I do believe this is the future, right? And more folks on this side and more of us on the other side is how I envision the things in future. But you asked me about the mentoring, right? Anything, right? We should not. I think the biggest issue which I see we are trying to grapple this transformation is we are seeing Gen AI is different than any other transformation. It's not. You have learned driving, right? How scary it was in front of you. I mean, you were saying, oh, my father is an expert, but can I drive, or can I make ways, or can I drive in this terrain, can I drive in that terrain, right? That's a mindset. So from my perspective, if you want to start, right, start with a why. I don't think Gen AI is the why, it's the how. And hows will keep changing. You just look at last 10 years, how many hows have changed in your own company. I represent a company, right, where we are always in lieu of a transformation which can build more efficiency. So how, don't marry to a how, right? Go through the why part. And mentoring plays an important role, right? Because we all, right, like it or not, it's just not women phenomena, it's men phenomena as much, right? This transformation is not easy for anyone and everyone to internalize it, right? So my suggestion is that create that awareness, first of all, about this transformation change, right? That's very, very important. Second is just build that ecosystem which support the change, right? How much you will be ready to invest in your own talent. But more importantly, I do talk about these IDPs, individual development plans. Take it seriously. Most part of my life, I have not taken it seriously, but I happen to be this side, so I can make those claims. Change IDP to Gen A IDP. Learn one thing in a month which just progress your journey forward. More you get used to this phenomena, more comfortable you're gonna get with. The organizations, what they can do is, it's easy to talk, but walk the talk will happen when you will, right, ready to bet on people. You will be able to give them the critical projects, because real learning is when you do the real thing. And how many of you can advocate for a person who has not have got a Gen AI experience, and we are ready to put them in a project sheerly based on the investment we want to back that individual on. So I think we need to just make sure that there's a safe ecosystem which we create, but important onus on us is that we are the one who should demand, not request. Right? Demand that support from the larger ecosystem. You also asked me about the advice, and I was talking to Roy. So first, one advice is don't look for answer from ChatGPT. It's very tactical. So I'm not even looking at this, because some of these things we try to see that, hey, what is ChatGPT? Very, very boring and very standard answers, right? That's where I would say my first advice is don't look for references, don't look for templates. Templates you should become yours, right? We keep it simple. We say everything, keep it simple. But the first opportunity we get, we make everything complicated. I leave you with A, B, C, how you want to transform AI. A for awareness. Awareness about what problem you are trying to solve. How does AI fit in? Don't make it a tool and then look for a purpose. Find a purpose, see that how this tool can help you move things forward with efficiency, right? AI is superpower, right? Right now, AI is not artificial anymore, it's augmented. Augmented for a reason, because practical problem, practical use cases, purposes, right? The panel talked, have to be found by you. And each purpose will be very different from the other one. So that's my first thing. Be aware of opportunity. Be also aware that everybody is going through the same anxieties and excitements. So you're no different. Be belief. How many of you are waiting for that perfect moment where you will get and take an AI project where you will commit no error? It will take years. Somebody told me that it's going to take pay parity 131 years to get the scores settled. We don't want that many time for things like right, pay parity, right? I hope we can challenge. But you need to build a belief. And for building the belief, you need to have a good belief ecosystem. Who are your belief ecosystem? Your mentors, your allies, your sponsors, your communities, who feed in with you more credibility and confidence that you can do it, and you are not different, or you are different for a reason. That for me is the B. But you need to not look for inspiration from outside, right? I again say look for references. Be the inspiration to you, by you, of you, and I think take the thing from all of you are leaders. C is curiosity. If you are curious, you will find the reason. I think many of you, I was just having a lighter banter, because a lot of them are great leaders in my organization, but I've never seen them going out for themselves, learning and taking a time out to network. We were telling about what's the power of networking. We say all the good things, but we don't follow it up with the intention, right? Leadership is all about intention. So any curious mind will find a reason. I don't want to name people, but I got the promise for them. I will see them more often on this side of the thing, so we'll leave it there. But curiosity. So for me, A, B, C, keep it simple. Everybody's going through the same thing. Build your IDPs. Make sure they are measurable. Make sure they are getting you out of their comfort zone. Go for the high bars. Don't look for failures. It's not training, it's learning. And learning, don't get typecasted in success and failure. Last thing, I love that question, right? Gen Z versus how can you learn from Gen Z? There are two biggest inertias for any change to happen. One, fear of unknown, and bigger one for people like me, baggage of known. You need to overcome both of them. And if you're talking to Gen Z, that means you have somewhere been able to, right, overcome that labeling of can I learn from this person or that person. Learning cannot be typecasted. I believe that the Gen Z have a very good way of, right, finding the how. And where there is a sweet spot between Gen Z and experienced folks is when you come together, join forces, you can tell them the practicality, right? It's that speed and velocity conversation. You can go full speed in the wrong direction. I think learning should be a velocity, not a speed. There's no fun in going to the doomsday much faster, rather than just take those baby steps initially and reach out to the purpose which Augusta was mentioning, Tyag was mentioning, and Neha was mentioning. So this is my advice, but again, it's an advice. Don't take it on the discussion, right? We all are going through the same level of, I'm telling you, anxiety that what is my relevancy? But that question should inspire you rather than make you feel bogged down or overwhelmed. Yeah.
Thank you, Salesh. I mean, very well put. I think that came through your heart, right from your heart. Okay. But thank you so much for sharing that. I think we're almost done. We have about another 5 minutes to go. But before we wrap up and sort of open up for Q&A, I think one quick round of questions to all the panelists in quick 2 minutes, if we can wrap this up, would be what advice would you give to women aspiring to become senior leaders in the AI-driven world?
So let me go first. I think the only word of advice to the lady leaders out here is, today if you look at Bangalore, we have about 22 or 23 banking processing centers, which have some 45,000 people in one and 200,000 people in IBM and so on. You have lots of leaders, ladies. One thing what I would say on the AI space is just learn it. Just don't be afraid. I mean, it's every time a computer, whether AI in the future, he said some big numbers, it's going to be so many billions globally and 6.8 billion in India. Don't worry about those numbers. 6.8 India makes what difference it makes for us. I mean, our packet is going to be big enough. I wouldn't worry too much about the numbers. But what is more critical is give yourself up to it. Live up to it. Learn it. That's my sincere advice. Thank you.
Well said. Augustus?
Thank you. Advice is the worst form of vice. So it's not advice, but my observations are that some of those things you can do is try to be cerebrally equal to men. I think that is key to where you want to go from that 22% of women in the AI ML space to a much better, decent figure. The other one, of course, is, I've already spoken about purpose. Take part in your organization's initiatives to mentor, coach, and sponsor other women. Why you're at 22% today is also because of the lack of role models. So be a role model for those Rukmanis in your office and in your network. Thank you.
Leah?
No, I agree with all the panelists. I would just add that make sure that you're investing in building your network, because your network is your net worth. And that network needs to be very strategically built, where you need to really think about, who are the people who you need from advice point of view, guidance point of view, coaching point of view, versus who will open up doors for you, who will speak on your behalf. So you need to have, usually women are very, very good at building our personal networks and our social networks. We need to use those same skills in building our professional networks also. And especially if you're interested in technology and AI, we need to actually check, are there enough, AI mentors, coaches, leaders, sponsors in our network? And if they're not, we need to actually reach out to them. And there's so many platforms to be able to reach out to them, both offline and online. We need to leverage all of it. Frankly, there's not been a better time than now for a woman who wants to build her career in India. So we need to actually take most advantage of that.
My simple advice is be at it. It's not the destination we are after. We are on a journey. Have courage to be proven wrong, but go for the stars. if you're trying something new, more often than not, you will find more ways to self-correct or course correct. Don't go after perfection. Second thing, I love the word advocacy, but it's not what you say, what you do to your colleague, to your peer, to your subordinate. I think I've seen the word advocacy is overly loaded, but then in those rooms, when your mentee is not there, when your peer is not there, are you progressing them forward? Are you batting them on the front foot? I think that's advocacy, because, yeah, in front of you, I will say all the good things, right? What I do behind you is more important. And I think as together, we need to learn from each other. There's absolutely no one way. And there's going to be democratization of learning, because everybody will learn something from each other. And I think that's the humility and openness with which we need to take this transformation forward. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think this was a brilliant panel. There was no better way and better people than these leaders to break down Gen AI as a technology and the intersectionality between the tech expertise and the emotional intelligence. I think that's the superpower, that's your capability to be able to navigate through this landscape of technology. And I think we have another exactly 2 minutes between now and your slow moving traffic. So any questions from any of the audience? And so that was crystal clear. So that's a good thing. So thank you so much for taking your time. Back to you.
Thanks everyone for having us here. Thank you.
I request you to stay back on the dais for a while. I request Mr. Arvind to hand over the token of gratitude to each one of you. And I think I would like to summarize the takeaways from this session. Of course, one thing is that AI is gender neutral, so let us put all the efforts to keep it gender neutral, such that all our biases, the human biases, do not flow into the AI. And of course, other than the ABC and the OCL model, which Neha and Shailesh talked about, maybe the takeaways would be that learn it, don't be afraid, just take a deep dive and things will just flourish. And cerebrally be equal to men. Don't think that we are any lesser. Mentor, coach and sponsor more and more women out there so that we can have that sisterhood wala feeling, because brotherhood is long known, but it's time to have more sisterhood come in. Invest in your network strategically, and last, stay at it, because the journey continues. Healthy conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests and participants, as we draw near to the conclusion of our summit, it is my honor to introduce a distinguished leader in the field of HR and business consultation with over 25 years of experience and expertise in GCC's Global Capability Centers, startups, and large organizations. She's a visionary in employer branding, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. A graduate of the IMB, she has garnered significant recognition for her impactful contributions to the industry. She is currently the Honorary Secretary of NHRD Bangalore chapter. Please give a warm welcome for the Woman of the Hour, Kasturi Kota, who will now deliver the closing remarks for the summit. Over to you, Kasturi.
After a power-packed sessions and listening out to so many and such visionary ideas and ideologies, it's very tough to hold on. And as Roy said, between the traffic and us, it is hardly any minute left. I may not take much, and then my colleagues from NHRD Young Advisory Board did an excellent job of summarizing each session, the key takeaways. So made my job easier. here. So I find it quite relevant to call out here that whatever that we take is not just to consume here and then walk out without having it ingrained in us. So it's important that we bring it for better understanding, and many a times it is the social conditioning or the wiring that has to change in us, which means it has to reiterate several times and it has to be resaid several times. So I'm sure the platforms such as Asia Women Leadership Summit or any such similar fraternity is doing this right job in reconditioning all of us. And it's so important that we understand, imbibe, and then pass on the baton to several of them. We all wouldn't have enjoyed the privilege that we are all having, provided our generation before had not taken those leap and fighting out those economical challenges. So it is so important that we recognize that fact. And a recent study from Grant Thornton did say that around 34% of women leaders have risen in India. We are quite comparable to the global standards. But is that sufficient all? Definitely not. I mean, we will have to make it more sustainable and retain the efforts that has taken. So retaining those efforts mean that we will have to have those changes in 3 different parameters. And then I look at it from a triangular approach. One, the industry or the organizations which are making enormous of changes and bringing in inclusive policies, creating a workspace which is more belonged. So while all of those strategies are taken and then there is sufficient recognition of that, and there are many organizations getting awarded and then continuing that spirit, it's also important that we change in the social conditioning of the ecosystem, the family setup. So it is so important that we take that through the organizations, because there it's easier to implement than to implement in the house front, right? Because Ghar ki murgi dal barabar. So it is quite important. So it's recognizing that, what a male allyship can do is also about not just promote it in the working space, but also take those learnings back to the family front and encourage such changes, not just between, in their space, but also influence their male colleagues to also do that change. And beyond that, it is also about the women coming forward and then creating that community. I mean, Neha did speak about the community, the network that brings in, the professional network that uplifts each of us. It is so important. So it's important that we remain in the tribe, even though sometimes some of us are able to contribute more than the rest of us. But it's good to be there as part of the tribe to make it look large and impactful. So this 3-pronged approach, I'm sure, will help us sustain the efforts that all of us are taking for, because as the workshop Nitin Goyal called out, if we are not recognizing the problem, then we would not take the strategy. So we have recognized, we are putting in efforts. It's important that we sustain. So we all go back with the written gift, the power of community, and it's so important that we come together and help. And with that, I also bring in the power of community is one such, is the NHRD Bangalore chapter is one such example of the power of community. We are a professional network of HR professionals. So India-wide, we are around close to 20,000 HR professionals. We are a not-to-profit organization, much different than any other HR community that gets set up with a business objective or a purpose. For us, it is about creating that representation at an industry level for the function of HR, for the fraternity of HR. And what we do is all of us coming together, volunteering, and do over and above what we do in our day jobs. So it is what we do for the fraternity, by the fraternity, for the fraternity that I keep saying. So we are, the landscape of chapters are spread across here. One such attempt that we have, go back to the previous slide, please. Previous slide. One such attempt is also that we are setting up a national conference, which also couples with HR Showcase. We did speak about many efforts that the organizations have taken. It's important that we bring in that to the forefront, celebrate those success, ideas that have turned to successful interventions, and celebrate those success in such a way that it gets amplified, right? There is a peer learning opportunity because we set up best practices of corporates and academia and the startups in the HR space. So which means it is about learning from peers and encouraging, taking our external stories internally, and also an opportunity to bring our internal stories externally to celebrate the success. So this also has an impact that we are, especially in Bangalore, we are far recognized for a GCC. So it's important that back home we are also able to celebrate that success, saying we are also doing all the great practices, not just in our corporate offices, but very much in India, and it is getting recognized. So all of this is a great platform for us to come celebrate together and create the community of that supports each other. So go back to your organizations. If you're part of HR, then you know about it. You're going to get those HR best practices. If you're not part of HR, influence your HR team to come and exhibit those best practices, and then we learn through each other and make this an amplified attempt of creating greater workplaces. Yeah, with that, I thank you all for staying back in spite of the traffic fear, and thank you Arvind and AWS, and we at NHRD are happy to be partnering and spreading and taking this motive for much larger audience. Thank you.
All right, thanks Kasturi for summing it up so well. I request Mr. Arvind to hand over a token of gratitude to Kasturi.
That this would not have been possible without the active enrollment, not Kasturi personally, but NHRD. Also Sagun here. I think a round of applause for her. She was
Sugan.
very hard. And Nilesh, he's come. And Momita, because these are the people who are really putting the show together. And so, thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, take a picture.